welcome to Stingray Tom's Florida and another dip into the archive. Jimmy Buffett, the musician and author, died just a few days ago on September 1st, 2023. While he was born in Pascagoula, Mississippi on Christmas Day in 1946, he moved to Key West in 1971 after what was essentially his first attempt at a country music career in Nashville. That began a 50-year relationship with Florida. I'd planned to do a video on him at some point, but sadly I thought he'd have many more years with us all. It was his friend and fellow musician, Jerry Jeff Walker, who brought him to Key West, that distant island at the end of the overseas highway that at the time was more Caribbean than Floridian. Jimmy would get another recording contract after his first album sold only 324 copies. This time, the music would be heavily influenced by his life in the Keys, featuring songs such as I Have Found Me a Home, Cuban Crime of Passion, and Grapefruit Juicy Fruit. Through the 70s and 80s, he averaged one album a year and supported it with regular concert tours around the US and Canada. While those albums would have connections to many faraway places musically, Jimmy kept in contact with Florida, even naming a song and album, Floridays, after a 1941 poetry collection by Don Blanding. Yet another one, A1A, was named for the most beachy of Florida roads. As his fame slowly grew around the U.S., his name became synonymous with Florida. It's a cliché, but it could be said that no matter where he traveled, Jimmy's heart stayed in Florida. This would make him an unofficial ambassador for the state, though some in the establishment may not have been thrilled with that, considering his nonconformist lifestyle. Nonetheless, his albums, many of which were released in the winter, and his tours took his fans southward to the little latitudes, as he liked to say. While there's no way to enumerate Jimmy's influence on travel to the Sunshine State, there's little question that he had a significant impact. He developed a sound that was partly country and partly rock, but was also popular with the easy listening crowd. Right along with the music was his personal style. This wasn't exactly developed on purpose, which is why it's so damned authentic. Jimmy was a sensitive and handsome, slightly bawdy, beach bum of an older brother. Smart, but a goofball, eminently likable and even trustworthy. And every year he brought Florida and other tropical places to the masses. It didn't take long for the party atmosphere on stage to flow into the crowd at his concerts. After he recorded They Don't Dance Like Carmen No More, which rhapsodized about Carmen Miranda, fans of all genders began showing up wearing Miranda's trademark fruit headpieces. People also came dressed in hula skirts and coconut bras, or as pirates, with a parrot on their shoulder. The latter would even cause Timothy B. Schmidt, who was bassist for the Eagles, and would tour with Jimmy in the 80s, to say that Jimmy's fans were like the Grateful Dead's fans, known as Deadheads, but Jimmy's fans were Parrotheads. The name stuck. Jimmy typically dressed in Florida casual, brightly colored shirt, shorts, and flip-flops or sneakers. His ever-growing Coral Reefer band, as much friends of his as they were terrific musicians, dressed however they felt, with guitarist Josh Leo even playing a Miami date in a pair of white overalls and nothing else. Apparently the airline lost his bag, as was immortalized in a video, Live by the Bay. Throughout his career, Jimmy would tour in Florida, and some of those dates were separated from the main summer tours and held in winter, because who wants to play in Wisconsin in January? I saw him in Daytona Beach on December 21st in 1985. He did the memorable show as a solo, on stage with a couch, Christmas tree, refrigerator filled with Michelob, and a microwave filled with popcorn. His 1977 song Margaritaville hit number 8 on the Billboard Top 40. It'd be the song that had more influence on his future than any song for any other musician. Sure, there are plenty of performers who have that iconic song, but Margaritaville grew into something much more than Freebird or American Pie ever could. The song, begun in Austin, Texas, was finished by Jimmy while stuck in traffic on the 7 Mile Bridge in the Keys, something that's even more annoying than it sounds. Margaritaville became a calling card of a mystical place we'd all like to get away to, but it still sounded a lot like Florida. Like so many of his songs, it's semi-autobiographical. As Mark Twain, one of Jimmy's influences, said, "Write what you know." That's part of the authenticity thing. He did lose a flip-flop and the girl. He did run out of salt, and later, after breaking his leg twice, he'd add that to the final verse as well. Margaritaville became Jimmy, and he became the song. Like other authors do, remember, Jimmy is a 5-time New York Times bestseller, he places a lot of what he creates in one universe. His collection of short stories, titled Tales from Margaritaville, would develop this new world, which is both fictional and has elements from his travels, including Florida. Margaritaville would grow to not only include music and stories, but it ended up being a very real brand. Jimmy's concert merchandise sold well, and because of the Parrotheads, he developed more swag, which would be hawked in the Coconut Telegraph, a newsletter that's been published since 1985. Its name is based on another song that could be placed into the world of Margaritaville as well. Basically, it's Jimmy's name for a gossip that happens in a tight-knit community. The jungle drums are beating with the tales from late last night, 'cause stories bear repeating for everyone's delight. You can hear 'em on the Coconut Telegraph. The same year that the Coconut Telegraph began, Jimmy opened a Margaritaville store in Key West. Yes, there was one in Alabama before that, but let's not talk about a mistake. Still, like all smart people, Jimmy learned from it and put the next store on Duval Street. If anyone was going to get the concept, it'd be there. It also helped that the previous year would see the city open a cruise ship terminal. This meant that people could get to Key West with little effort. No 4-hour drive from Miami. No plane on Sunday. Parenthetically, I'm glad I'm old enough to remember Key West before cruise ships, but that's for another video. They would add a cafe that boasted a cheeseburger in paradise along with a mix of Caribbean and Southern American comfort food. That'd be the humble start of what would grow into an empire unique in popular music. Think about successful musicians. The Beatles, Elvis, Elton John, Queen, Madonna. Each claimed sales of over 250 million units, whatever those are. Jimmy sold about 20 million, a sizable number but far from record-breaking, if you'll excuse the pun. Still, Margaritaville led to hotels, casinos, resorts, retirement communities, and a cruise ship, many of which are located in Florida, including the Margaritaville restaurant at Orlando's Universal Resort. It has a unique item on display, a Grumman Albatross flying boat, owned and flown by Jimmy. Named the Hemisphere Dancer, it's interesting as a Buffett artifact, and it floats on the water with bullet holes in it, courtesy of the police who thought that it was smuggling drugs while in Jamaican waters. On board with Jimmy during this situation was U2's Bono and his family. Thankfully, the police were poor shots. As of the 100-plus gunshots fired, only 7 hit their mark. Bono was terrified. Jimmy didn't usually mention that, but the Irish musician shared his feelings with a Belfast newspaper. Jimmy also added a radio station to his list of enterprises. First broadcasting in 1998, Radio Margaritaville took advantage of the still new internet and would be one of the early branded stations on satellite radio, currently part of Sirius XM. It plays Jimmy's music as well as complimentary tunes in rock, reggae, blues, folk, and country. It also carries his concerts live. The station currently broadcasts mostly from the Margaritaville Resort near Orlando and Margarita Hotel in Nashville, Tennessee, and has a great group of hosts. Jimmy's authenticity extended to another impact on Florida through his charity work, most notably his founding of the Save the Manatee Club along with Florida Governor Bob Graham in 1981. The organization's mission is to protect imperiled manatees and their aquatic habitat for future generations. Patrick Rose, biologist and executive director of Save the Manatee, has said, "Thanks in great part to Jimmy, endangered manatees are perhaps America's most popular and well-known marine mammal." In response to the news of Jimmy's passing, Rose would say, "It's with a sad but grateful heart that I share the loss of a great old friend to manatees and the watery world that sustains us. I will miss you, old friend. You were there from the very beginning of our efforts, and each time and every time we needed you." Jimmy was also a supporter of the Gulf Specimen Marine Laboratory in Panacea, a nonprofit whose mission is to further the knowledge of marine biology, protect marine life, and collect, classify, and disseminate marine specimens. It's one of my favorite places to visit in Florida, too. Jimmy also created another charity, Singing for Change. He wanted community-based organizations to create change in communities where he played concerts. Since 1995, every ticket sold to his concerts included a $1 donation. As of 2023, Singing for Change has turned over more than $15 million. In a U.S. Senate hearing on the Endangered Species Act in 1987, Jimmy said, "We live here on a big round timeshare, and if we as humans want to assume the role of landlord, then we have to take care of all the tenants." That sums up his charity work and even his music. Jimmy used to describe his music as drunken Caribbean rock and roll, though it's much more than that. His 30th studio album, Equal Strain on All Parts, will be released this fall. That's nearly 350 songs, including love notes for his wife, songs about his children, stories about remarkable individuals, nostalgic looks at his own life, explorations of interesting characters, funny situations, and heartfelt reflections about life-changing events. While the average person knows him as a good-time performer with a long list of party songs, a look at the lyrics tells a much different tale. Yesterday's over my shoulders, so I can't look back for too long. There's just too much to see waiting in front of me, and I know that I just can't go wrong. Where it all ends, I can't fathom, my friends. If I knew, I might toss out my anchor. So I'll cruise along, always searching for songs, not a lawyer, a thief, or a banker. Mother, Mother Ocean, after all the years I've found, my occupational hazards being, my occupation's just not around. Old men in tank tops, cruising the gift shops, checking out chiquitas down by the shore. They dream about weight loss, wish they could be their own boss. Those 3-day vacations become such a bore. Jimmy Buffett was an aggregation of contradictions. He appeared to be the quintessential rock star, connected with alcohol, pot, and hedonistic revelry. Yet he was a family man who was married to his Janie for 46 years and raised 30 kids. He said of his music, "It's pure escapism," though millions of fans have been deeply affected by his lyrics. He was the poster boy for the laid-back Florida beach bum, even learning to surf in later life, quite literally living the endless summer, much like that classic movie that circled the globe in search of the perfect wave. Yet he was a savvy and committed businessman who would become a billionaire by, as he sings, "I made a real big deal out of a little beach song." Jimmy's positive impact on Florida and its tourism industry might be more consequential than that of any other person. Gratefully, that impact will continue as long as his music is played around the world. Thank you for watching another of my videos. If you learned something, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel to learn more about Florida's tourism history. Stingray Tom's Florida, traveling through time around the Sunshine State.